Amazon has unofficially launched their first fleet of flying delivery drones across select regions of the United States.
One of the capabilities that this drone has is that not only is it fully autonomous, which means that it does not have a pilot. We load the mission into the drone at the delivery station as we load the package into the drone and send it off to complete its delivery. Our drones fly 12 kilometers round trip, and they make one delivery on each trip.
In theory, we should all be amazed by this. The future is here. In a perfect world, we should be able to celebrate this as a monumental achievement for all of civilization. We're finally building a drone workforce to carry the collective burden of humanity. Soon, life will be exactly like Star Trek, where all of our menial, arduous, and tedious tasks are performed automatically by computers and machines, allowing us all to live relaxing lives and pursue our true passions, and build our natural skills and talents, like art, music, science, history, engineering, whatever your heart desires. You could be a journalist, you could be an inventor, you could be an explorer and look at every nook and cranny of the known universe and find new life in unexpected places. In fact, you might even write the greatest story ever told. But the sad truth is that the introduction of delivery drones is actually a sign that our civilization is in collapse. We all know the introduction of robots, automation, and now even AI is usually a sign that they're giving up on supporting the workforce. Automated drone delivery robots are not being given to us to relieve us of our burdens. No, robots are coming to replace us. But if we all lose our jobs, then who's going to be able to afford to actually buy any of the things that are being delivered? The greatest irony is that a world full of delivery robots will have no one to which they can deliver. We've had this lie told to us so many times. In the media, they tell us that the introduction of these automated devices is for us, to help us, to make life better for us. They want us to get excited about an automated drone workforce as if it's going to make our lives better, as if it's going to make our lives easier. No more tedium, no more repetitive tasks. We get our products manufactured quicker, cheaper, and easier because factory workers no longer have to do the heavy lifting. Fast food is even made faster in an automated fast food restaurant.
This is Taco Bell Defy.
Defy,
right? Looks like kind of like a bank, maybe.
Looks like a bank, yes.
Drive-through lanes there. So one of the lanes is traditional. You know, you order your food from the screen and then you pick it up at the window. But the other lanes are for pre-orders. You can get that via the app, or then they have one for delivery drivers. So when your food is ready, it drops down from the kitchen, which is actually 2 floors above your car. Taco Bell hopes that it cuts down service time to 2 minutes or less.
With an automated checkout, we can manage our own purchases and even get out of the store faster by skipping ahead of a line and checking ourselves out. And now we get our purchases delivered to us even faster by automated drones, robots, and self-driving cars. We can get our purchases delivered to us almost immediately. But every time one of these automated innovations is introduced to the world, all it really does is take those jobs away from the people who used to perform those tasks. And it also tends to make our lives a lot more complicated, especially right at the beginning, because these devices are almost always extremely unreliable and not at all user-friendly. And this is making our relationship with each individual business more stressful, as the fate or the outcome of each individual interaction becomes more and more uncertain. Will the robot understand my voice command and actually perform the correct task? Will the food robot spread the correct amount of condiments over my sandwich, or will they just fire mustard across the room? Can the barcode sensor detect what product this is? And is it applying the correct discounts to each individual purchase? Will it even recognize the item that I'm trying to purchase at all? And if there's a problem, what do I do? Who do I go to? As time goes on, whenever one of these sorts of problems arises, it seems that there are fewer and fewer human employees to actually help correct the issue. Sure, right now, at the self-checkout at Walmart, there's some grumpy dude hanging around helping out like 7 or 8 customers at a time. Just wait your turn, please, sir. But how long before even he's replaced with AI or some form of automation? And now with a drone workforce, we'll have even more things to stress out about when we click buy and confirm our purchases online. Will the delivery drone be able to keep my item in one piece while driving it or flying my order to me? Will the robot destroy the items while it's literally dropping off the delivery at my location?
The 80-pound drone seen here dropping a package that doesn't quite keep on the landing pad placed on the driveway.
Or will the robot even bring the items at all? Is the robot even going to make it here? Can the robot survive the trip? How long will it take for some kind of justice after a robot destroys your property? And that's only really if you're one of the lucky few people who actually still has a job and is able to afford to purchase things online at all, let alone has a house. Really, if all you can afford is the bare minimum needed to survive, then none of that will apply to you anyways. You'll be walking or biking to Walmart every day to get your daily rations. During the tail end of the lockdowns, while the economy was tanking and small businesses were just drying up and disappearing, some of the larger chains resorted to using delivery robots to start delivering purchases to people's homes. A while back, I saw someone posting a series of images and videos of homeless people harassing and hindering the operation of these automated delivery drones, and the person posting these captioned the images by stating, "It looks like you can't own a business anymore."
Delivery robots, these autonomous vehicles that are delivering Amazon goods probably, are under attack in some urban centers where the vagrants and the homeless people who seem to rule these cities are vandalizing these vehicles as they're out delivering packages. This is what's happening. Take a look. Oh goodness. Is it a shame? It is a shame that my thought is, what do you expect? That's not what we should think when something like delivery robots rolls out. We shouldn't be like, well, what do you expect people to do? You would hope people would have more respect. I think this is all the video we need to see. We get the idea.
And that's easily the most tone-deaf thing I've ever seen. These images are a microcosm of the greater issues that we're dealing with today. Homelessness and unemployment are skyrocketing as businesses are shutting down everywhere and large corporations are replacing us all with robots and automation. We literally have Symptom and Cause in the same image together. Maybe not these homeless people specifically, but the point I'm making is that you wouldn't have homeless people harassing delivery robots at all if those homeless people simply had employment. And this also proves how human delivery drivers are still better, because a human delivery driver would know not to drive through that neighborhood. A human delivery driver would know how to get the food to the house without losing any of it. A human delivery driver would just know how to drive around dangerous regions in general. They would avoid potholes. They'd know how to cross train tracks. They wouldn't just fall into random holes. Delivery robots get destroyed on the regular, doing things that a human would never do.
If you try to block the robot, it will either maneuver around you or it will politely ask you to move. So kind of cool.
It's not us that are asking for these things. It's not us that are demanding faster delivery times. But it's the arrogant demand and expectations created by corporations themselves that are causing these exact issues. I guess we've had a handful of driverless car services pop up, but really only a select few cities are even allowing driverless cars to operate.
This video going viral, showing a self-driving car being pulled over by police in San Francisco.
This is crazy.
The car was pulled over because it was driving at night without headlights on. An officer gets out of his car to speak to the driver, only to discover
Ain't nobody in it.
and then the car speeds away from the officers, passing through an intersection. Before pulling over again.
So maybe today driverless cars aren't a direct threat to the workforce. They're doing this to stress test the technology. It's only a matter of time. But if you drive a taxi or an Uber or something, then they're coming for your jobs too. You might think that you're safe because you've left the regular workforce and you make money on your own now. But even those jobs are not safe. If you're an artist, AI can take over as a designer. Hell, there are even entirely AI-generated YouTube channels now. For most of us, it's not very likely that we'll ever be able to get an Amazon delivery drone to come to our place anyways. That technology is not going to be coming to your neighborhood anytime soon. Yeah, we've seen a few Amazon delivery drones flying around, but that's mostly as a novelty at this point. It's actually illegal to operate flying devices of any kind in a lot of different populated areas. Just for one example, Phoenix, Arizona has giant no-fly zones.
In the center of the city, right here, is Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. In order to assure the safety of arriving and departing aircraft at the busy hub, the FAA restricts the use of drones within this area. So a Phoenix drone delivery service probably just couldn't operate here. And here in the restricted airspace around Luke Air Force Base. And here around Phoenix Goodyear Airport. And here, and here, and here, here, and here.
And that's just one city's flying restrictions. And let's be honest, no company's really going to want to fly a delivery drone to a dangerous part of town or an impoverished neighborhood. And it's basically impossible to do flying delivery drone drop-offs to somebody that lives at an apartment structure like I do. So this is going to disqualify huge chunks of giant populated cities like New York or Chicago. How many millions of people in how many other cities are completely out of reach of a flying delivery drone? There are a ton of other newer automated concepts that have not at all proven themselves yet. But regardless, corporations are pushing these changes anyways. Even though a lot of these technologies have not demonstrated that they're going to be reliable, large businesses and corporations are still trying to insist that this is the future, and they're already putting the cart in front of the horse and replacing employees with automation before even knowing if it's gonna work. And within line of their typical nefarious motivations, they're trying to gaslight us into thinking that we're the ones asking for this. They'll act as if there's nothing they can do. They're bound to the demands of the population. They're bound to the demands of the customer. People are just demanding quicker delivery times. So they simply have to create a delivery drone army. Don't you understand? It's because rich people say, give us things faster. So we do it. This is the exact same attitude and logic that we see when dealing with climate change issues when we go up against big oil. Corporations scapegoat us and claim that the environment is being destroyed because we're demanding too many products. We're demanding too much fuel. We're the ones demanding too much plastic and consumables. We're burning too many things. We're consuming too many things. Meanwhile, they're the ones making it all. But according to them, they have to produce all this oil. They have to manufacture all these products because we're demanding it. Because the customers are asking them for it. Corporations and large businesses are merely the victims in this exchange. They have no choice. They're bound to the demands of the market. And I'd love to remind you that that's all a lie. 75% of carbon emissions are created by the top 100 companies. They're only telling us that climate change is our fault and our responsibility because they're the ones destroying the environment, manufacturing these products for us. But they don't make these products for us so that we can have these products. They make these products for us so that they can make money and they can have control of manufacturing. And we're only buying those products because that's what they're selling us, not consumers or customers or users of products. The companies manufacturing these things are the ones creating those emissions. God, if only there were laws regulating these things, then it wouldn't matter what the customer was demanding. They wouldn't have a scapegoat. They would just have to do what's right. The way capitalism is sold to us is that for every need that arises, there will be a business that comes up to fulfill that need. And as the community of customers continues to support that business will be able to grow, they'll be able to hire employees, they'll be able to give back to the community, and the money will continue to trickle down to everyone who needs it, from manufacturer to outlet to employee. And then that employee should be able to take their earnings and maybe even turn around and give that money back to the business to support it and purchase products from it. Or maybe they can wander out down the road and support another small business that's just around the corner. A small business that also has employees and a community that they're serving. But that's not really how capitalism works. What we have now is more like corporatism, with large corporations taking more and more control over every individual aspect of manufacturing and distribution of every product that we buy. Everything we eat, everything we consume, and every service we require to function in society. And this makes it extremely difficult for small businesses to be able to even pay their employees a living wage. They can't compete with the prices of the market because they don't have these streamlined supply lines like the larger corporations do. And in order to get in on those supply lines, they have to sign contracts to those corporations that essentially gives those corporations control of those small businesses anyways. With large corporations owning and controlling these large supply lines, it makes it so much more difficult for small businesses to even be able to afford their supplies in the first place. Restaurants were one of the first frontline services to suffer from inflation and the cost of living crisis. The lockdowns exacerbated that issue too by cutting off their supply lines for about a year or two. It's almost impossible to start up a new restaurant business today. Most fail within a year, and even the ones that don't fail will usually go about 3 years before they see a meaningful profit. In theory, a restaurant owner would be able to hike up their prices for food, but that really just causes a whole litany of other issues. Like, it's crazy enough that McDonald's is charging $5 for a hash brown. Like, aren't they like that big? That's ludicrous. If you raise the prices too much, fewer people are going to be able to come at all. And if you keep them too low, then your margins are going to be too thin. Either way, you're not really going to be able to guarantee that you can pay your wait staff or any of your kitchen staff anything more than just minimum wage, with maybe the promise of tips if they do a good enough job. But because customers can't really afford to eat out as much as they used to be able to, eating at a restaurant has really just become more of a luxury. So even if you can manage to afford a meal, most customers can't really afford to give a meaningful tip to frontline staff. Like, it costs $50 now for a meal that only a few years ago would cost maybe $25. And just that sticker shock. Getting that bill at the end, you might not have realized it was going to be that expensive. Tips are such a weird way to incentivize your wait staff to work for you, though. That's a thing that was introduced during the Great Depression. When restaurants wanted to stay open, people that wanted to work as wait staff said, hey, I'll work for you for free if you just let me do it for tips. It was a wait staff demand. That system only really worked because there was literally no money to run those restaurants. I've heard some arrogant local restaurant owners complain about this as if it's a failure of our generation. They'll say things like, nobody wants to work anymore, or it's impossible to keep good staff. But ultimately, more people are working multiple jobs. People are willing to work multiple jobs in order to make ends meet. So they're way less likely to want to waste their time with some arrogant local business owner with some vague promise of possible tips if they work really hard, only to find out at the end of the week they only made a couple $100s.
Lately, I've been finding a lot of happiness on the internet in the work reform movement. You'll see a video of a small business owner on the news and they're like, I have to work at my bakery like it's a job and nobody wants to work anymore. And then you go to their website and they pay $2 an hour plus tips, but they work in like downtown where parking is $11 an hour, and it's like, maybe nobody wants to work for you because you don't want to pay your workers. Like when you pay a minimum wage, you're literally saying, I am paying the amount that the government legally requires. And I would pay less if I could. It's fun to see like the emails where recruiters are like, hey, we'd love you to fly out and do this interview. The person's like, cool, what's the salary? And the recruiter's like, oh, the salary? Are you suggesting that you work for money? When someone responds that way, you know the salary is like $40,000 a year for 10 years of Java experience.
People want to work, but the job market doesn't make any sense anymore. Business owners feel entitled to hardworking staff simply by the very virtue of owning a business. They think that they just manifest and grow out of the earth. But the whole job market is like flipped upside down. It's so weird. Jobs that used to require a ton of experience because maybe even they're kind of dangerous, well, they're just hiring people off the street now because they're just that desperate. Meanwhile, jobs that used to hire anybody off the street for entry-level stuff, well, they're now requiring like 20 years experience.
Roughly 38.4% of entry-level jobs required 3 to 5 years of experience, with industries such as manufacturing and software services demanding well over 50%. The 80s and 90s began a relentless pursuit for efficiency in an attempt to improve the bottom line. Many American jobs were being replaced with the increase in globalization, as automation and outsourcing were the prioritized method of delegating most roles. Along with this shift, companies found it was more cost-effective to recruit skill sets rather than train them, as only 24% of current vacancies are now filled with internal candidates, a 66% decrease in just the last 50 years, with only 28% of talent acquisition leaders reporting that internal candidates are an important source to fill vacancies. With the shift of planning for attrition rather than training for retention, companies have really begun to paint themselves into a corner, leaving a nation of raw talent feeling confused on the effective steps to be able to jumpstart their career. As companies invest 4 times as much into recruiting as they do training, it discourages the true purpose of the entry-level job entirely, as it is more cost-effective to provide as little training as possible and instead demand the skill set is already provided. However, the entry-level job is also in demand, as 92% of executives think the American workers aren't as skilled as they need to be, with Forbes reporting that 59% of employees have no actual workplace training and are entirely self-taught. A man named Sebastian Ramirez spotted a job posting that required 4+ years of Fast API, which is a web framework for building HTTP-based service APIs in Python. What is ironic about this is that Ramirez couldn't even apply for this role because he only had a 1.5 years of experience, because he was the actual creator of Fast API.
Larger businesses have become totally calloused to this issue. Instead of offering job security and comfortable pay, no, they put a fire under your ass and force you to compete with your own co-workers. An office job isn't boring anymore. It's now very stressful. You never know when you're gonna get replaced by someone younger that comes along and says they'll work even harder for less pay. And they don't care if you're spending most of your paycheck on transportation to get to work or on daycare. No, you're supposed to want to work. Don't you understand? That's your place here on Earth. You're supposed to be happy performing mindless, tedious labor forever. What we need now more than ever is jobs and job security. We're desperate for it. But large businesses are exploiting our desperation by treating jobs like a premium exclusive luxury. So no surprise, workplace morale is at an all-time low. Well, maybe not lower than during the Industrial Revolution, but the point is, it's real bad. Employers only value employees that are willing to give the most in exchange for the least. And they want to be able to take for granted that you'll never willingly leave your job because you have nowhere else to go. And ultimately, in the end, it doesn't matter how much of yourself you gave to that company, how much you bled, sweat, and cried to build it up, because they're just going to turn around and make you redundant and replace you with a robot at the first chance they get, just to maximize profits. Businesses no longer feel any kind of obligation to support their communities. In fact, they don't care what their community thinks about them. They would just as soon destroy a community and move on after everything has been consumed. We exist in an exploitation market. We were told that capitalism would take care of us, that the community's demand and expectation for specific types of products and services would create a necessity for frontline staff, for frontline service positions. So why would anybody want a job that forces you to compete with your own coworkers just to survive, just so that you can be considered valuable in your position? I remember growing up being shown this image of a cold boardroom of corporate idiots making heartless decisions behind their company. But it's actually much colder than that in reality, especially now with the introduction of private equity investors. Things like private equity investing have completely destroyed the concept of businesses. It's destroying the Western economy as a whole. It's really just this game to get rid of a bunch of debt and make a failing business take all the blame for it. See, the way it works is, if an existing business seems to be doing really well, a private equity investment group can come along and purchase that business and then saddle it with a whole bunch of extra debt from other companies and businesses that they own. And then they'll sell off a ton of that company's assets, as well as lay off a ton of the employees. And then they'll also just make a ton of their services and items redundant, simply to try to get some of that money back. And then the private equity group will just sit by and do nothing while they watch that business slowly collapse and die. And they do this on purpose. And when that company finally does go bankrupt, that private equity group will walk away with pure profit as the company burns to the ground. Nothing is sacred anymore. Nothing is protected anymore. This exact same thing happened to a chain of retirement homes in the United States called Manor Care.
So first off, when the Carlyle Group acquired Manor Care, it took on a whole lot of debt. But through the power of debt transfer and debt servicing, they were able to transfer all that debt to Manor Care. Expensive to be bought out by a giant company. The Carlyle Group also sold off all of Manor Care's assets, that is, its literal care homes. Now that's expensive in the long run, they've got to pay leases on homes they used to own, but the Carlyle Group got a short-term windfall from all the extra money from the sales, to the tune of... This is called sale-leasebacks, which is a business word. It also extracted all kinds of fees from Manor Care, like transaction fees and advisory fees, to pay for all the invaluable guidance and services that they provided for Manor Care. Finally, because the Carlyle executives weren't getting paid fast enough, Manor Care borrowed even more money to pay them those fat dividends. Hold on, Hazel. Dividends usually only get paid if the company is making a profit. So surely, Manor Care must have been profitable. Well, go back to business school, Buster, because it turns out that private equity-owned companies often have to borrow money to pay out their overlords. This is called dividend recapitalization, or recaps, because it happens so much they had to come up with a shorthand for it. With all those fees, rents, and loans to pay, Manor Care didn't have a whole lot of money left over for little things like staff, or medicine, or keeping their patients from getting sick and dying. Some Manor Cares were reduced to one nurse for every 60 patients. It turns out that across the US, private equity-owned nursing homes have 1,000 more deaths per year, and their patients are 11% more likely to have serious health issues or have to go to the emergency room.
A large firm purchased all of the retirement homes, saddled it with a ton of debt, sold off a bunch of the homes as well as just all of the assets that they could get their hands on, laid off like 90% of the staff. And then there was this huge uptick, this huge rise in illness and death in these retirement homes. simply because there weren't enough staff to take care of all of the patients, there wasn't enough medicine for all of them, and there weren't enough staff to even just maintain the facility, so it became dirty and infested. And when people tried to put together a class action lawsuit to sue this private equity firm, they couldn't do anything about it because technically the private equity group didn't technically own the retirement homes. So they were absolved of any legal wrongdoing. This is America. If you ever wondered why Toys R Us went out of business, it was the exact same thing. It was purchased by private equity. They put about $6 billion in debt on the company. And then at that point, it was mathematically impossible for the company to ever get out of that unless they just became unrealistically more successful than a toy company ever could be. The private equity firm knew that they were giving the company so much debt that it would fail. They did it anyways, and they made billions of dollars off of it. And when Toys R Us went under, all of that debt was removed from their responsibility. So in both of these cases, we have companies that were integral to their communities or needed by their communities. They had loyal customers who were keeping those companies in business, and then another group came in and just undermined the entire process of those businesses, let them die, and even exploited the employees, exploited the customers, and then made billions of dollars when those companies went bankrupt and disappeared. These companies both served specific needs in the market. They both served specific communities. I mean, the retirement home was essentially an essential service, for Christ's sake. And then the entire function of those businesses, along with their customers, were exploited to make billions of dollars. The people who depended on those services and desired those services were used.
And then when all of the liabilities and lawsuits and, losses piled up, Carlyle Group disappeared in a puff of smoke and Manor Care went bankrupt.
It's not just about replacing us with robots. It's just about gutting the entire economy as a whole. They don't want to have to support a labor force. And part of the reason that none of this is sacred anymore, part of the reason why all these rules have been removed and revoked so that equity firms can operate in this way, it's because they know the economy is in a state of free fall, and they're just trying to scoop up as much of the fat as they can before money itself has no value anymore. This trend of human employees being replaced by automated robots is going to continue in the future with the advancement of AI. AI is going to start replacing white-collar employees sooner than you think, especially with this AI first initiative. It seems kind of illogical when you look at all the companies that have gone AI first, because AI has not proven itself to be reliable yet. AI is still in the developmental phase, yet everyone's already treating it like it's here already. But it starts to make more sense when you realize that AI first has less to do with them really wanting AI and has more to do with them just not wanting us. They're just trying to get rid of us. The point that I'm trying to make in this video is that even if they use an improvement in automation as an excuse to get rid of people, or they say that they absolutely have to get rid of the people because the new technology is just too good, they're lying to you. These people do not want to have to support us anymore. They don't even want to share the planet with us. In a recent podcast, the CEO of Zoom, Eric Yoon, introduced a new idea to offices. Eric Yoon wants to be able to create the ability for people to use AI avatars to replace themselves in the workplace and to take over a huge portion of your workload. These AI avatars will act exactly like you, they'll talk exactly like you, they'll make decisions like you would. They'll go to all your meetings, and they'll even answer all your emails and converse with people the way you would.
He says that in the future, Zoom, the video conferencing software, will be able to send digital clones of you to meetings. And those digital clones will read your emails so that you don't have to. Like, they'll respond to emails. They will act as you. They will make decisions. They will go to meetings and answer questions exactly the way you would do it. It says an AI avatar will essentially be an AI version of yourself, meaning it will act the same way you will. And you can use it to do your work because it's going to behave the same way that you would in that situation. It has all of your knowledge and all of your information. And in fact, you could have an infinite number of these AI digital clones that could all be synced together and working together, but also what if you could change the parameters on those clones? What if you could like make one a little bit better at being a salesman, or you could like turn up the empathy when you go fire a person for sending an AI clone to a meeting or something. Today for this session, ideally, I do not need to join. I can send a digital version of myself to join so I can go to the beach. Eric Yoon, the CEO of Zoom, says in 5 to 6 years, 90% of the work done by human workers will be done by digital clones. And then, we'll be at the beach. Like you and I, we're at the beach. The digital clones are doing all the work. 5 to 6 years, 90% of the work, we're at the beach.
And apparently you'll just be able to kick back at home or go on vacation, drinking alcohol and enjoying your time while your AI avatar does all of your work for you.
Do I have to pay Zoom money to host my AI clones and keep track of them and make sure all the information is up to date? Like, why is Zoom involved in this at all? Like, if I have an AI clone, wouldn't that be something I'm disseminating to the various companies I'm working for? Or alternatively, more probably, the CEOs of whatever company I'm working for would steal my identity and be like, well, this is company property now. Now we have your clones and you're fired, right? This doesn't make sense. You can't have an AI clone make a decision unless you know 100% that it will be an actual good decision that you would have made. And you can never know that because AI is a black box. It doesn't work that way. It's so stupid to say that this is even close to feasible. It's embarrassing to say that this is a possibility. AI tools like this would not save anyone any time, because even if you sent your AI clone to a meeting, you would then have to read the transcript of that meeting to make sure that your AI clone didn't say anything stupid, and you would have to send emails and be like, what is your AI clone talking about, dude?
The point that Angela Collier is making in her video is just that this technology can't possibly exist in 5 years, and even if it does exist, there's no way in hell that Zoom is going to be the company that brings this technology to us. But I use this clip to prove that this is something that engineers and programmers are working on today. This is a tool that companies want to be able to use. This is a tool that business owners want to be able to use. And like I've been saying throughout this video, just because they're promising this to you as something that's going to make your life easier, the reality is, the track record shows that they're just going to use this as an excuse to get rid of you.
Imagine an AI avatar, digital clone, could actually do my job. Like, it could type my code for me, it could make my PowerPoint slides, it could go to conferences and present at meetings, it would come up with new ideas and write new software and run new simulations and apply for grants and get funding, and it could do all of that by itself. And I'm at the beach. Why would my company pay me? If all of this is being done on their servers with their energy, hosted on like their computers with their, information and their goals and strategies at that company, and I'm at the beach, I don't have a job anymore. I'm not at the beach, actually. I'm just hungry because I don't have any money, because I don't have a job, because the AI clones have taken the job. I don't think this technology will exist in 5 to 6 years. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But in the event that it did, no one is paying me to send an AI clone to do something while I sit on the beach. That's not how companies work. And Eric Yoon, the CEO of Zoom, knows that, because even though they're a video conferencing software, Zoom does not let their employees work from home. So is Eric Yoon, the CEO of Zoom, paying his employees AI avatars to do stuff while his employees are at the beach? I don't believe that for a second.
There's a way higher likelihood that people are just going to end up losing their jobs. The reason that Eric Yoon would even think to propose something like this is not very likely because he came up with the idea himself, but because he knows that this is something that other millionaires and billionaires want. This already matches the philosophy of the upper class. What's kind of scary though is that big tech has already been laying off hundreds of thousands of people per year. And they're using AI as the excuse for this. They're saying that AI is so good now, we don't need all these people. But I'm willing to bet that that's a lie.
Twitter led the way with layoffs when its new owner reportedly laid off half of the employees within a month of taking over the company, breaking the taboo of tech layoffs, making it easier for other big firms to lay off staff without standing out from the crowd. Big tech has been making significant cuts, and the layoffs don't seem to be ending. According to layoffs.fyi, a website monitoring job cuts in the tech sector, there were 165,000 tech sector layoffs in 2022, 260,000 in 2023, and there have been 125,000 so far this year.
They're blaming these layoffs on AI. And the thing is, like, yeah, we're probably on this tail end of this weird AI bubble, but AI has not actually taken over in any meaningful way. I don't understand what that means. It doesn't make any sense. Right after the 2008 recession, the tech industry was growing exponentially. They had like a 20% growth rate within the first couple of years. Being an employee at like Google or Microsoft back then was considered really glamorous, and it seemed like they couldn't hire enough employees fast enough. But even though AI is still a pipe dream and it hasn't meaningfully taken over in any real way, nor even proven that it could do such a thing, big tech is still using that as their excuse to lay off these hundreds of thousands of people. Really, they're just doing this to maximize profits and cut overhead costs. And I think that they're just scapegoating this ethereal concept of AI to do it. Corporations don't actually care about supporting their employees or supporting their communities or anything. They just care about their profit. The point, though, is that they are actually doing this with the intention of replacing those employees with AI, though. This is an example of putting the cart before the horse. They're laying off the employees in anticipation of having an AI that can do what they do. This is an introduction to the implementation of AI over human employees. See, they're not replacing us with AI because AI is better than human employees. They're merely trying to make AI so good that it can replace a human employee. Don't listen to what they're saying. Listen to their actions. Watch what they're doing. With their actions, they're telling us that they're creating AI to replace us. They're telling us that their plan all along was that they always wanted automation. Just look at that fucking company that placed an AI robot as their CEO. That's illogical behavior. That doesn't make any sense at all. Who would put an AI robot as the head of their entire corporation? AI has not proven itself to be better than humans in any way. AI has not even proven itself to be reliable yet. This decision is irrational and makes no sense, right? The only way that this makes any sense is if this AI robot represents some sort of a principle behind which these people already stood. This AI robot only makes sense if it represents a value system to which they were already adhering. Putting an AI robot as the head of your company only makes sense if you were already worshiping that thing before you even built it. See, it's all about the algorithm. It's all about chasing the money god. Watch my video on the AI takeover for more on that. But essentially, we're watching a religious belief in the algorithm playing out in real time. I've worked for government. I've seen the way the corporations operate. I've seen the corporation adopt a whole new smart system, spent millions of dollars, as well as slowed everything down. But the corporation didn't care because it made them more money and it gave them more control over the system and each individual customer. See, that's what it's all about, money and control. I wrote all of this before that big stock market crash in the beginning of August 2024, so I don't know how much of all of this is going to be relevant to the current unemployment crisis. But the point is, it's becoming harder to get a job because the economy is crashing. And resources are bottlenecking, and they're becoming too expensive and too difficult to obtain. And inflation continues as the global standardization of the American dollar diminishes and everyone is sending their America bucks back. Nobody wants the dollar anymore, and the people that still want the dollar are not trying to protect it, they're exploiting it. All of this is going to lead into points that I'm going to be making about transhumanism in a future video, but it's all over. It's done. Their game is coming to a close. And this is true, but a lot of the elite believe that they're gonna get out of this mess by turning themselves into immortal gods, and they're going to rule over a planet of AI robots. That's actually their plan. The reason why none of the media that we see around AI technology makes any sense is because it was never for you. Never at any point was AI meant for us. AI was always meant to replace us in every aspect, in every facet of life. It's just for their bizarre egos. And any glitz and glamour, any kind of attraction they try to give you to AI is all a lie to keep you stuck and to keep you from breaking out of the matrix.